reason why they exist?
Yeah, so all I'm asking you is if you think you can defend the young earth view without going down this route, without going to precept. Do you think you can? So, for example, if you were talking to a Christian or if you were talking to someone religious, do you think that you could defend the young earth view without going to precept? That's all I'm wondering. I'm just, do you think you could do it with the science alone, with the foundational understanding? If we assume that both interlocutors have the foundational understanding that their views are justified, like let's say, for example, we both had the Christian worldview.
So you want to discuss that a fact under consideration can be justified without reference to its ultimate basis?
No, I'm saying I'm saying, for example, if we were to both come from the Christian worldview, if I were to
Yeah.
come to you from the Christian worldview, and I'm being honest and forthcoming to you that I'm not, but I'm saying if we were to have such, like, for example, a mock conversation that I was a
Well,
Christian, I was coming
I
from.
would simply tell you as a Christian that among other scriptures, but just to start off, that Jesus stated that in the beginning God made Adam and Eve. Matthew 19, in the beginning.
Right, right. Do you think that you could do it with the science alone, with if you were talking to a Christian?
Um, well, science doesn't stand on its own. In order to invoke any empirical matter, one must include by implication, the framework of reality. Otherwise, science is not meaningful.
All right. So, but surely you still take. I mean, you take certain views that even if even if that's true, even if I grant you that,
There,
it
there
seems
can
like you.
there cannot there can there cannot be any paradigm-free discussion of any fact.
Well, let's grant you that. Even if we were to
So
grant
if
you
we're
that,
right. So well, yeah. So I
well,
have a
even if
Christian who says to me, "Why is the earth young?" And I said, "Because God said so. That's why."
sure, sure. So let's grant you that. My question is,
Because
can you?
outside of that, then you can't discuss anything about the past.
Sure, that doesn't. But
Do
that
you
does not
do you
answer
un-
what I'm.
do you understand that you cannot discuss any singular fact without either an explicit or implicit paradigm frame of reference? That's not possible. It may be unstated, but it's there.
So I'll grant. Let's grant that. Let's grant that for the conversation. Now, let's say that we both, for the sake of the conversation, did have that paradigm, and we did have justified beliefs with those references. And my question to you is, can you defend the young earth with use it with scientific arguments? I understand you can appeal to,
Science
yeah.
science depends upon metaphysics. Okay?
Do you think that the
how would you be able to defend any scientific stipulation without some implicit metaphysical frame of reference?
yeah, so let's grant that we
Okay,
both
is
have
that
the
is
frame of
that is
yeah.
right? Then our metaphysical starting point is going to be God as creator,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
right?
So
And then
let's say that
then the next step is that creator is the triune God of the Christian scriptures who has revealed himself in natural and special revelation.
hmm. And then let's say that someone has the belief that they have this triune God that's revealed himself in natural and special revelation, and they also believe that there's some different interpretation in terms of the age of the.
Okay, do you understand that when somebody approaches this situation from a secular point of view and they seek to ascertain the age of anything, in order to do so, you have to have metaphysical considerations. Otherwise, you can't even posit the age of anything from any point of view. What you want to do is you want to have a special case that science justifies the age of some entity from the past without metaphysical considerations, but then you can't talk about the age of anything because you're still operating from metaphysical considerations.
What I'm just wondering is if you could do an internal critique
Well,
in the
there are.
following sense.
If you went to creation.com or Answers in Genesis, they have a number of articles of states of affairs that they say suggest a young Earth. Okay.
Right, right. So that's the
Okay. But
conversation I'm
but
looking to
but
have with
but
you.
the point but the point is simply this: is either way, none of these are definitive. Okay.
Sure. So I'm looking to have the then if we can call it that. I'm just looking to have the suggestive conversation with you then.
Yeah, all you're
And if
simply
yeah,
dealing with is an interpretation of facts. That interpretation is going to be predicated on your metaphysical framework or your paradigm. You see what you're asking
I've
for.
granted you this, Darth. I've granted you this many
Right.
times.
You cannot have a neutral. You cannot have a neutral metaphysical discussion about facts. It cannot be done.
Sure. So let's. I'm just wondering if, because here's the thing, because you can have the conversation on multiple levels. You can have that principled stance, and you can say, "Listen, I can always look. I can always just go to precept. That's fine." But I'm just wondering if you can do it on the other
Yeah.
level
Well,
too. If you can do it
first
on
of
the
all, what you
suggestive level.
need, what you need not to do is try to color the conversation when you say presup. You'll notice that the terminology that I've been using, okay,
Hmm.
metaphysical framework,
Okay, I'll use that.
paradigm,
I'll use
background
that instead.
information,
Sure,
okay,
sure.
right. Well,
I'll
then
use that
then
instead then.
any well then you can't discuss anything about the present or the past without metaphysical considerations.
Okay, so is that
It's
do I
not possible.
okay, so I take it so I just want to be clear. So I take it to be the case that it's the conversation that you would not be willing to have with me.
It's
Is that
not that
correct?
it's not that I'm not willing, it's not a coherent one.
What is
You
not
cannot
coherent
you
if yeah, go ahead.
because you cannot discuss facts apart from their paradigmatic or metaphysical framework, whether they're deemed to be explicit or implicit.
Do you think it's coherent to discuss facts with someone on the let's say you were to both at least pretend you have the view that you have the same metaphysical framework? Like, for example, if I were to say, okay, let's just say for the sake of the conversation, I have your metaphysical framework,
Yeah.
right?
Well, then you would then
Is
you
that
would
coherent?
recognize then you would recognize that the highest authority for the interpretation of facts is God Himself, and not the interpretation of men, even very smart men who have credentials or degrees.
Sure, but my question was, would it be coherent? So, for example, even if I'm being honest with you, I don't share your framework, but if we would it be coherent? My question to you is, would it be coherent if we were to both pretend, for the sake of this higher order conversation, that we both have this lower order same metaphysical framework? Would it be
Then
coherent? Is the
I would
question.
say that if you attempt to set aside God's revelation, then no determination of age can be determined about
No, that's
anything.
not what I was
As
asking. What I was asking
okay,
is what that's not what I was asking. So what I was asking was if we both pretend that we have the same metaphysical framework and for the sake of having this answers in
right.
Genesis
Well, the
type of
metaphysical
conversation.
framework includes the biblical view on creation. And the biblical view of
Hmm.
creation is a fiat instantiation of the heavens and the earth, not purely a simply mechanistic, materialistic development from some other origin point other than God's creation.
Sure. My question was, would it be coherent for us to have that conversation? I wasn't asking if what
It
would
will
the
it will
conclusion
either
would
it
be.
will either the conversation will either be in the framework of the Christian revelation, the Christian scriptures, or it will not. Then it
Sure,
will
but
be operating. Then it will be operating from some other paradigm. So
sure. No.
if we're both Christians, then we're going to be operating from the paradigm of the Christian worldview as it is represented from Genesis to Revelation.
Sure.
In other
So
words,
my question.
the mind of man and his interpretations of facts will be in subjugation to the mind of God and how he's revealed it. This is what I would tell any Christian.
Sure. So my question to you is, if we were to both have this conversation with the, at least with the, even if we can even call it a mock conversation, where we both say, okay, I am taking on the worldview that is your worldview. Let's discuss what the evidence indicates. Now, we can say, regardless of whether the evidence could indicate one way or another, we know the answer because the Bible said the answer. We can do that. But the question is, I'm looking to have the conversation of what the evidence indicates. Now, we could say, regardless of what we may indicate, we could be just wrong, even if it comes out one way. Yeah, go ahead.
When you say the evidence indicates, what you're referring to is a potential state of causal relations. But a potential state of causal relations is not necessarily definitive.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not trying to have this conversation to say that anything is necessarily definitive. I'm just asking you.
Did the evidence of observation of looking up into the sky from morning to evening to people who lived 3,000 years ago, did the evidence indicate that the sun goes around the moon? I mean, the sun goes around the earth?
Yeah, so I'm granting you all of this, Darth.
Evidence is never presupposition or paradigm free.
Sure. So my question to you is, can we both have a conversation where we both?
Then we're going to start with God's revelation. Then, right?
Sure. And my question is, would it be a coherent conversation? Can you just answer that question?
Yeah, you're going to pretend that you are a Bible believing Christian. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Now I'm just wondering if I want to have this tangential conversation, because I was raised Jewish. Would you be open to someone pretending that they were an Orthodox Jew? That's how I was raised. Also, would your
Well,
I know that's a different framework. Yeah,
you got to make up your mind.
We can do both. Yeah, sure.
You make up your mind what you want to pretend to be.
Sure. We can both pretend to be, for the sake of this conversation, we can both pretend to be Bible-believing Christians. I would be interested in also having a conversation with running the religion I was raised on with you as well, just to see how that would go. But sure. So if, let's say, we both take on the view that we're both Christians now. So I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. We both have the same metaphysical framework now. So now you would agree that it is coherent for us to discuss the evidence. So things that sites like Answers in Genesis would refer to, or what it may lead to adopt certain conclusions that the Bible would hold. So we can have coherent conversations about empirical facts now, right?
Yeah, it's really very simple. Okay. Suppose you move to somewhere in the deep forest of Canada, somewhere where nobody is, and you come across a very large location of very round rocks. And somebody comes along and says, well, the evidence indicates that, there must have been some flooding in the region that moved these rocks all to come into one location. Because after all, these rocks are just so big that the best explanation is going to be that it occurred purely naturally without the interjection of agency. But that's not necessarily the case. And the pile of rocks is symbolic of the issue of the age of the earth. How did this collection of facts get to be here? Was it from purely non-agency occurrences, or was there agency involved at any point?
Well, we both take the view that there is agency for this. Remember, I'm a Christian now in this conversation.
Okay, so you're a Christian. So it's settled.
We both take the view.
God has told us that He created the earth by fiat, and He's told us who the first human was, and he gave us a chronology of his descendants.
Yep.
And we can by looking at that chronology have an indication of an approximate number of years since the time God gave fiat creation.
Sure. So my question, what I would like to discuss is, are there certain beliefs entailed from this with respect to the existence of certain stars that we can see the photons from?
We've already gone over that, okay? Because one of the things that you're presupposing, okay, is what is called uniformitarianism, that the key to the past is the present, that certain present processes have continued and were the same in the past, such as the speed of light. Now, one thing that you cannot do is you do not know what the speed of light is in deep space outside of our planet or solar system. It may be that there may be some unique fabric to our solar system and galaxy that can have an impact. We do know that the speed of light can be slowed down by various mediums.
Sure. Right? So now, I just want to be clear.
Einstein showed us that what we thought Darth was just empty space is not.
Okay, I understand, Darth. I just want to come in for a second. So I'm not having this conversation to assume those things. In fact, I'm not assuming those things. I'm just saying, let's explore the ways, some of the things that may follow or may be disjunctive following. So say it could be this or this if we take on this view.
If a series of assumptions are correct, then the conclusion that the universe is old might be correct.
No, that's not what I'm saying either. What I'm saying is, because I'm assuming that you're
point.
Respectfully, Darth, I'm trying to, but you seem to be interrupting me a lot. So
okay,
my point is, okay, so all I'm trying to do in this conversation is I'm trying to say, okay, we both believe there's a young Earth. Now, what are the other beliefs that we also need to hold to preserve the young Earth belief? One of the possible beliefs that we can hold is that the speed of light was faster in the past. I will grant that.
No, I don't need to hold that.
No, I'm not saying you need to. I'm saying you need to.
I don't need to have all answers about physical parameters in the past answered. All I need to know is, has God spoken about the time frame of the instantiation of the universe and the earth?
I'm not saying you need.
Yes, God has spoken to it.
Sure, I'm not saying you need to know these things. I'm just saying it is still possible for us to explore these things and come to a conclusion.
If God says the earth is young, and the smartest scientists in the world, all 10,000 of them, okay, whatever number you want, all say, no, that is incorrect. The earth is old. Then the question is, for you as a Christian, are you going to believe the mind of God and how he has revealed it, or are you going to believe the interpretation of facts from men who reject the revelation of God?
As a Christian, in this conversation, I will accept the revelation of God and not the scientists.
You do understand that all empirical declarations are provisional?
Yeah, so I will accept the word of God. I will accept God's revelation and say that it is correct. But I can still. But that's not what I'm here to discuss.
So then you accept that the earth was instantiated by fiat creation.
Sure, as a Christian, I accept that.
Right, and that it was created along the timeline of the generations that are listed, starting in Genesis, going throughout the Old Testament.
Sure.
And that time frame is around 6,000 to 7,000 and not greater than 10,000 years.
Sure. Now, yes, but that's not what I came here to talk about. Like, what I came here to talk about was there are certain things that may be entailed from that about our beliefs that we may have to hold in order to maintain that young Earth view. And some of those beliefs may seem non-intuitive, which is not a problem, because we can just bite the bullet on the non-intuitive beliefs because God revealed it. But I just want to see if you're willing to have a conversation about some of the non-intuitive beliefs that may follow from holding this view. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Why do you think the Earth is old?
That's not the that's not the conversation
Okay.
I'm here to have. I'm here to have with you.
Well, then,
I'm here to
get to the point.
So the point is, I'm trying to discuss, if we maintain this young Earth belief, there are certain beliefs that may be entailed from that seem non-intuitive. Now, in this conversation, again, I'm a young Earth creationist.
Can you give me an example of what would be non-intuitive?
Yeah, so an example of what would be non-intuitive to us is if we look at a star and we say that some of the stars that we're looking at not only do not exist, but never have existed. So, for example, when we look up at the sky and we see the stars, when we can say, in order to maintain our young Earth belief, one of the ways that we maintain it is to take on the view that the stars in the sky, some of those stars in the sky not only do not exist, but never have existed. And that seems pretty unintuitive.
Why would I have to adopt that they didn't exist?
Or, so you don't necessarily have to, if
there are stars out there. So how would me observing starlight indicate that they didn't exist if I hold to a biblical framework?
I will explain, but before I want to add a disjunction. So it's either that or the speed of light was faster in the past. It would be one of those views that you'd have to take.
Or, well, you're assuming that time operates at the same rate that it does here in our solar system. It may be, for all you know, that temporality operates at a different rate than it does here in our solar system.
Can you just clarify what you mean when temporality?
Do you know what time dilation is?
Sure, but I don't. Well, not on the level of a theoretical physicist, but
no. Well, neither do I. Okay, because that what the rate of change that we conceive of may not be the same rate of change that occurs out in space.
Sure. So you can say that.
Would you agree that there is a literally phenomenal amount of information about the universe that we even haven't tapped into yet?
Sure. The ones I see.
Could what we not know mitigate against our interpretation of what we do see?
Yeah, I'm granting this. So what I'm saying, great. Yeah. So so a couple of things. So when we look at stars, we can try, and I'm taking all of these things into account. I'm taking the speed of light could be different, the speed of light could be faster, although I will say that even though we've observed that in different mediums the speed of light is slower, we haven't ever observed a medium, not saying it can exist, but we haven't ever observed a medium that speeds up the speed of light, which is really what would be required.
What about an unbeknownst to you medium that significantly slows down the speed of light?
Well, that wouldn't help. I mean, it could exist, but it wouldn't help the young Earth case. It would actually make it worse for the young Earth case.
Yeah, actually, no. Because what if the fabric of space, okay, at a quantum level is quite different, resulting in an exponential rate of slowdown of light as opposed to the fabric of deep space?
Are you saying that the fabric? I'm just want to get clarity on what you're saying.
The mistake that you're making.
Hold on. Can I just get clarity on what you're
making? Is that photons? The mistake that you're making is you are presupposing, without justification, that photons travel at the same rate of speed within our solar system as they do in deep space. Now, unless you go out into deep space, and even if you could, you may not have the capability to detect what the fabric is. Okay, for example, have you ever heard of the Higgs boson?
Sure, Darth. I just want to be clear. That's not
Okay.
what I'm saying. I think you're misrepresenting me right
The
now.
point the
No,
point
no,
is you cannot you when you are
Darth,
making
please.
interpretations of facts, you can never be paradigm free.
So, Darth, I want to be very clear. I'm not
All right, this
assuming.
is going on and on and on.
Let's.
Get to the point.
Yeah.
My
Well, you.
patience is
I will
running
if you'd
out.
let me. If you'll let me. So I'll try to talk faster because you're interrupting me. So again, if I'm not assuming that the speed of light is a constant, I'm just saying that if the speed of light slows down, it doesn't help the young Earth case, because what really would help the young Earth case is if the speed of light would speed up, because that would allow enough time, or not even enough time. It would allow there to be, it would allow the photons to go from our eyes back and track back to where the star is located based on how we've triangulated it in the required amount of time. That would help. If it's slowed down, it would actually just require even more time, and it would
Yeah.
be an older Earth.
Why are you committed that the universe is old?
I'm not in this I'm this conversation. I'm committed to the universe is young. I'm just saying I'm just exploring what entailments there are from that view. I'm a Christian in this conversation.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that when we triangulate a star, we can triangulate how far away the star is, and we can say the star, and we could do that by measurement of angle. Yeah.
No,
Well, I can.
only that only works for stars that are relatively close. Were you
Really?
aware of that?
Can you show me?
Really?
Can you show me which stars we can?
The farther they go out, the more distant stars out there, they cannot be triangulated. Were you not aware of that?
What's the farthest distance we can triangulate a star at?
I couldn't give you the exact specification, but based upon my readings, the triangulation of stars are only those that are relatively in close proximity to the farther away stars. Were you aware of that?
I was aware that we have excelled at measuring.
Do you know
Well, you're asking me a question. Do you want me to answer?
Do you know how they determine the distance of really distant stars that they don't triangulate? It has to do with what they call luminescence, not because of triangulation. Triangulation only works on a scale of relatively close stars.
That still would give me millions of light years, though. So I would still be able to run this argument. It still wouldn't give me 6,000. The stars aren't 6,000 light years away. So yeah, well, let's go roll with that.
Listen, apart from God's revelation, the age of something is not determinable.
That's fine. I'm already granting that the Earth is young. I just want to explore what entailments follow from that. So when we triangulate a proximate star that is millions of light years away, which the proximate stars are, and we can triangulate, so it follows from that if there is a given speed of this photon. Now you can say speed was faster, although we've never observed a medium. If you say it's a given speed,
or it may be slower in our solar system.
Or slower in our solar system, sure. That means it was faster outside of our solar system. I take it that to mean the same thing as it's faster outside of our solar system.
Whenever you are trying to discuss the distance of a star, whether you're a Christian or not Christian, there's going to be a whole bunch of implicit assumptions.
Sure, but not the speed of light. That's not one of the assumptions in triangulating.
You're not getting it. You're completely oblivious that. Let me give you a phrase. Have you ever heard of the phrase that all empirical interpretations are theory? You ever heard that before?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Okay, good.
In the literature, it's the. I don't have a problem with auxiliary hypotheses for every theory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware of the Duhem-Quine thesis. But all I'm saying is that the assumption that you're mentioning is not one of the assumptions in triangulation.
Well, the interpretations, if they are simply inconsistent with what God has revealed, from a Christian point of view, they are to be rejected. And even if somebody doesn't come from a Christian point of view, all conclusions are provisional in nature and may or may not be true. Do you know, relatively speaking, in the course of cosmology, that Big Bang cosmology is in terms of history is relatively young? Did you know that? That it's relatively
Darth,
new?
Darth, we're off topic now. I did not know
No,
that I'd be interested in
what
TV
I'm
shows.
talking about,
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
but you see, you're focusing on the age of the Earth, and
No, Darth, I really
all
think
right, listen. I've already
okay.
given you what,
All right.
half an hour, 40 minutes here. We're just going around. We're not getting anywhere.
All right. That's fine. No, it's fine. Listen, it was good talking to you. I do
Okay.
enjoy talking to you. And thank you for having this conversation. I just want you to know that what I'm trying to converse with you about is it seems to be a difference between what I'm trying to talk to you about and what you're trying to talk to me about. I think we're talking past each other a little bit. I hope in the future that we can have maybe another conversation. We can pick it up at a later time, and we can get to what I'm really trying to talk about here, which is if we both adopt this view, what the entailments are. But I don't want to piss you off. I don't want to get you upset because I do want to continue having
Well,
conversations.
we've already been going around like this for
all right.
half an hour.
I'll end the conversation then. I don't want to. I want to have this conversation with you when you're less frustrated.
I'm not frustrated. It's just the conversation's not getting anywhere.
Right, and I think it's not getting anywhere because I think we're talking past each other about what we're trying to discuss. So you seem to think that I'm trying to discuss the age of the Earth. What I'm really trying to discuss is if we adopt the view that the age of the Earth is young, then what follows from that? What are the things that we also need to adopt in order to maintain it? Which is not the same thing.
Anything else?
No, that's all I'm wanting to talk about.
Okay, we're done.